Welcome to Shul.com. We are here tonight at the night Kolel Seder with Rabbi Mordechai Peretsky. Peretsky from Chicago. Rabbi Peretsky does something really interesting, something that you probably seemingly don't thank him too much for, but a lot of times women, kids, men are carrying sfarim, strollers, and getting around town. And unbeknownst to us, there's someone that actually goes around checking it to make sure that it'll be more kosher. So we have Rabbi Peretsky. He travels the country. He talks all about ERUV. He fixes ERUV. He's got a 30-foot truck parked right outside here on Abbott in Surfside. It's okay. Actually, they're doing a lot of construction tonight here, so you're going to camouflage right inside.
I got into someone's parking. Someone's driveway.
All right. Baruch Hashem, you're not going to have any issues. But nonetheless, we have an ERUV here in Miami Beach. I know you've seen it before. You're working now in the North Miami Beach ERUV over there. Tell us what you're doing there. Tell us a little bit about your experience fixing them, along with where you learned some of your halachot. What's it like fixing the ERUV, and maybe some comments about the ERUV that's here in Miami Beach. Is it something that should be worked on? Let us know a little bit. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So I pretty much travel around the country checking multiple ERUV. I own 3 bucket trucks, one of which happens to be in South Florida right now. Another one's two are in Chicago. One of them that's in Chicago is going to be going to Columbus in a few weeks. Might stop in Minneapolis first. We'll see if I can brave the cold. I go around and check the ERUV, and then pretty much most of the time what I'm doing is upgrading old existing ERUV. So they become under disrepair most of the time, either just from material, and they're 30 years old, and that material has outlived its useful life, just like you have to replace a car after a certain amount of time period. So same thing with the ERUV, you have to replace the material. It's a physical structure that is subject to the elements. It's not inside a shul. It's not like it's not like a mikvah that's self-contained in of itself, but it's exposed to car accidents and drunk drivers and vandalism and multiple stuff before I get distracted. And to weather, of course. I'm sure you have that over
here. And then in Miami, we even have the hurricanes.
And you have the hurricanes, right? But even
and the wind.
And the wind. Sometimes it's just the UV rays in southern area. I even had something I wouldn't have thought of. Like thank God, Baruch Hashem, I don't know how long I've been doing this, 9 years now. It's rare that I find. I've put up maybe somewhere between 25 and 30 ERUV, even more. And it's rare, Baruch Hashem, that there's a problem due to my, mishap or something. But I had last winter, I had actually in Dallas, Texas, that they had a snowstorm. And then it brought down and made a wire. The snow accumulated on the wire, and then brought it too low, and then the truck hit it. But okay. And then I went and fixed it. It wasn't the biggest deal.
A lot of times you see these poles become the poles, the lechis, and then you have the string. If the string sags, does that make the ERUV not kosher?
Yeah, so the machlok is about that. The minhag olam in America is for sure to be mekel, and Artzil maybe I think they're a little more machmer about that. But in America we're mekel. For the most part, most city ERUV they're using the telephone wires. If you ever look at a telephone wire, you'll see that they're never ramrod straight. They always have a little bow. So if it sags a lot, then that's much bigger, more like a half moon type of thing. That's a much bigger issue. But actually today I put up in North Miami Beach. There was a wire that was a nice little droop. So I saw the electric wire that they were using. So I put up a new wire, and that's nice and straight. And
you put those plastic strings.
I have multiple different types of wires.
Fishing line.
Yeah, I have various different wires for different applications.
Have you ever looked at the Miami Beach ERUV here that goes to Bay Harbor, the Surfside? Any comments?
Yeah, so I haven't. I've seen very little of it. I've seen a few lachis, and honestly, from what I've seen, is that unfortunately it's kind of like the rest of South Florida, besides pretty much North Miami Beach and Boca Raton, which I have recently redone with updated materials, same materials the electric company uses and stuff like that. And but it's more some of the I've seen very little of it, but a lot of times I've seen in South Florida are using like strings and little fences that are falling down and
would it be maybe problematic? Some of these maybe not.
Some of these could be problematic. Though the best marshal I've come up with recently, and this kind of goes for Miami Beach and it goes for a lot of South Florida and it goes for many ERUV in the country that unfortunately haven't been looked at by someone who's more of an expert in the halachos and just revisit it. It's kind of just basic, just because it was put up by even if it was put up by Rabbi Eider Zatzal, that it's totally irrelevant. I was checking an ERUV, and just to give you an example, I was checking an ERUV on a Sunday. We finished Sunday afternoon. By Monday morning, the electric company had already parceled it. Literally, it was not even kosher after we checked it thoroughly for 24 hours.
Wow.
And so that and that's just the way it is. The electric company is at it. I had an ERUV recently that unfortunately a Yid paid $250,000 to take down 13 telephone poles. And we had to reroute the ERUV. And unfortunately, it wasn't like the view was like the ocean like you have over here. It was like seeing another building. The whole thing was absolutely ridiculous. But that's what happened. So we had to reroute the whole ERUV. But you have to catch these things. But it's all in the checking.
Would it make more sense here, like in South Florida, based on what you've seen and the way that the weather patterns are, just to avoid carrying at all on Shabbat, because it could be?
Yeah, I don't know if I would go. Look, I don't know if I would go that far, but definitely every ERUV needs to be. I set up a system where we have the weekly checkers, and then someone's supposed to go around every 3 months. And then I or someone else who's more of an expert goes around either every 6 months or every year to double check upon that. In other words, we're trying to set up
twice a year. Now, twice a year, people literally carrying hundreds of people.
Yeah, so it's a big problem. 100%, it's a big problem. So that's why we have to retrain. And I had an ERUV, and then I went back and checked it. So then we had a whole meeting and I found problems. So I went back into the train the checkers, and you have to. But it's a constant battle. And but the first step is recognizing that probably something more needs to be done than what is being done. The best example, going back to the type of material and probably the type of coolers that are going on in any area really that hasn't been really thoroughly looked at by someone who does this relatively on a frequent basis, would be the equivalent of if I tried to sell you a lulav that was not entirely closed on top. Most people, they just completely, they won't even look at it. They're like, to have a completely closed lulav is one side on a ritva that we don't even paskin like. But lamaisa, that's what everyone thinks, that's what everyone does. But the whole thing is like such a chumrah beyond the chumrah. But when it comes to the ERUV and the material and the kulas, it's the best example is that most ERUV, I give them they're worth a $20 esrog. If I had tried to sell you a $20 esrog, you would throw it back at me. You wouldn't even you would say I'm ridiculous. Well, why is this $20? You would go to the next mocher.
We're using every kula to get away with making it kosher. But we would never accept that standard on our own if we were to do it for our mitzvah that we had to show off to people. Correct. Because nobody sees it.
Not only that, but more is that, a lot of times, a very good example again is also, in Basra Cholov, you have a lot of, if you look in the poskim, you have a lot of things that they'll say, the shach will say, Shasatchak, you can be mekel. So if you called, some milk fell into the cholent or something, I don't know, however it happened, right? But then, so whatever the details were, but so the rabbi says, it's shasatchak, you can be mekel. Like, most people wouldn't even consider the saying. They were like, shasatchak, what's a shasatchak? So I'll go down the block, I'll go to my friends, or I'll go buy a cholent. I won't eat it. I'll check it out, whatever it is.
They'll manage.
They'll figure it out. Like, he'll live. But all of a sudden, when it comes to ERUV, because really the reason is because most people don't know anything beyond anything about it.
They don't know what the halachot are. They haven't done the detailed work or checking
it's just, and they don't, so therefore it kind of just like gets, put into the pot and everyone thinks, oh, someone's on top of it. I could tell you, I was checking an ERUV, and so I'm going around with the person who's supposedly in charge. There's an ERUV that was built by Rabbi Hydra Zitzal.
Where was the location?
I can, whatever.
Okay, I got it.
I don't like to say specific cities.
Okay.
I'm going around with the rabbi, I'm going with the person who's been in charge. So everyone says, I'm like, okay, now what? And everyone is, this is like Wednesday. They used it on Shabbos, right? And this is Wednesday. And I was like, I'm like, okay, so where are they going? Everyone looks at each other. I'm like, and then I happened to see, like there was a pole over there. And I was, Shkacha brought this, someone else, a lady drove in, and we're all standing there, so she stops. So I'm like, do you happen to know if there ever was a wire on top of that pole? Oh, yeah, I remember. I think 4 or 5 years ago, a moving truck came and took it down.
So for 5 years, ERUV might not even have been kosher. And by the way, and how many people are carrying in this ERUV?
Wow. Right. Yeah. But I have dozens upon dozens of these stories.
When you're checking on site, can I ask you a question? Have you ever seen an ERUV in the United States that it was really done the chumrah, the right way, appropriately, where you said it's good, it's perfect, even according to high standard? Any city that you
it happens, it's very rare.
It's very rare.
Very rare.
Because a lot of times they have to use these kulot in order to.
A lot of times they have to use the kulot, but it's more than that. I'll give you a good example. A very good example is. A lot of times when every city, there's a halacha of karpef, which is like, if it's an uninhabited area, so then you're not allowed to carry in that area. So if you have that uninhabited area in the ERUV, so then in Pashtus, it should passel the ERUV. So then, almost all the time, it happens all the time, but come to the city, all they want to do is show me, we're so from, that we take out this uninhabited area and we have a tourist of Pesach around it, we have all sorts of wires, we have all sorts of things. I'm like, I say, couldn't care less. Like, that is like the least of your problems, and I can almost guarantee you 100%. Because honestly, for the most part, before I even walk into a city, I can passel the area from my computer. Because I have Google Street View, and not only that, but I can go back in time and also will know how long area was passel for. Wow. So everything's on Street View at this point. We have depending upon where, but almost everything is on Street View in many cities. So I can go back, and most of the time I don't even need to go to a city to passel the ERUV.
You can do it from your computer.
I can do it from my computer at home. I had one Rav who I told him that his ERUV was passel from the computer. I said, look, the picture was a year old. Maybe you guys fixed it. So he said, no, I don't think I fixed it, and he called his ERUV down. So that's
a year after figuring out.
Yeah. That was rare. That's rare that they'll just. I'm like, look, I'm not telling you they're responsible. I'm looking at a picture that's a year old. The Rav felt, that I found a few things. He felt that was enough, so then he called
What do you think, Mordechai? What do you think of the fact that we allow sometimes the ERUV council themselves to check the ERUV when maybe we should have a third party like you, who's being paid from the people to check the ERUV, because this is a deoraita. It's a major. It's not a small item. The first person to be killed in the Binbar was Mikoshesh. It seems Slovchad. What did he do? He carried on Shabbat. That's
I'll tell you more.
It wasn't a small. It's not a small thing.
So one thing, I'm like totally overwhelmed with the ERUV. I have so many cities right now, but I feel maybe this should be said is that. There was I don't know what happened over here, but around Rosh Hashanah time, which was of course before the whole Hamas thing and everything.
Yeah.
So all the Rabbanim that I'm aware of, everyone was talking about, there's a Minchas Ani that says, which is from Yaakov Emden, that says, when you don't have the shofar on Shabbos, so then, Shmir Shabbos will protect. So that's what a lot of the Rabbanim were quoting. If you look another 2 pages, you have to read more in the piece. He says that it's B'davka Shmir Shabbos of Tiltal, of Hotzah. And that's
because that is the
which was very,
why.
very misnaber, because why are we not blowing shofar on Rosh Hashanah?
Carrying.
Because of carrying, because that's what the gezerah, which is very, very misnaber. Except no one read the next two pages.
They ended it
so everyone spoke about Kavod Shabbos and which and you know, in general, I'm not downplaying those aren't important. 100% they're important, but the whole thing, the whole piece. The port was really B'dafka Tilta, which is very, very mistaber, as we say.
I have a question, though, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
So, in ERUV, it's basically, it's a closed loop, right?
It has to be a big circle.
So, this might not be feasible, but I'm just thinking, like, for example, you were talking about electrical lines and all this. If there was literally an electrical line going all the way around 360, then somebody can just feasibly test the results.
Put in a circuit, circuit.
Say, hey,
so
it's a closed loop.
Right.
If they detect an open loop, then we have a problem.
And so I'll give you an example.
So what he's saying is it's a testing mechanism.
Yeah. So in theory, it's a theoretical thing, but I'll tell you why it doesn't work.
The bow wouldn't work, right?
I'll tell you why it doesn't work.
Okay, why wouldn't it work?
Because unless you're in Eretz Yisrael and you're putting up your own poles. I know you guys do it here on the beach side, but on the rest of the side, you're not doing that. So there's myriads of things that can go wrong, and that are not that you'll have a continuous circuit. So therefore, your system will show that it's kosher, but maybe they dug a hole under the pole or under the lechi that's attached to the pole, or maybe it's broken in the middle. There's many different things that could go wrong that will not be detected by a circuit. I'll give you an example. We had in North Miami Beach just now. We had 3/4 of a mile of fencing. Everything was perfect. Great fence, strong, very happy. We're getting towards the end, and there's what's called a Pischa B'Karen Zavas, which is very rare, but it happens, and I was thrilled that it happened because it was like, oh, what's the point of keep going and checking every inch of there? Because, the fence has been good. Like, what's the problem? So what happened was the fence is turning. So the whole Gemara says if you have a fence and it turns, so that if you draw a straight line from this way, it doesn't hit the fence that's here, and draw a fence from this line from this way and doesn't hit, and there's what's called no omen merubal parts.
Okay.
So therefore, it's what's called a Pischa B'Karen Zavis. And then even if it's more than Dalet Tvachim, maybe Gimel Tvachim, whatever, but it's mamish possible. So you could have everything. You could have a brick wall, which I've seen come down, by the way. But even you could have a brick wall, but it falls in the corner in the wrong spot.
Small
thing that's 10 inches, 10.5 inches, 11 inches, and mamish the entire area is possible. Everyone's being machal Shabbos. All the days. Mamish, nothing to rely on.
And a regular balabas, he sees this, that he don't even know the difference. He might think, he's looking on the top. He's not even looking where Mordechai is checking out. Meaning he knows. So back to the original question, we really should have a third party checking.
Yeah, we're encouraging every area to.
So it's a private third party coming in to overlook what the individuals are on a weekly basis.
Overlook was kind of just give a report and even if so you might say, it's a good area, but then as many cities have been upgrading their materials and re-updating their ERUV, so therefore then the people that don't, lag behind a little bit.
Have you ever checked ERUVs with drones? Is that a system that you've been looking into to make it easier?
Yeah, so I've looked into that. So I'll tell you, I've used it in certain locations. The problem is that there's an FAA law that the drone always needs to be in what's called line of sight. So I haven't found the way around that yet. So you can't sit in front of your computer and just do it. You need to be
able to see the drone at all times.
So I've done that. I've used the drones. Let's say, to an example, I'm trying to figure out if there's a fence behind in people's yards. So instead, sometimes I'll go into every yard. But if I don't want to do that, then I'll use a drone to.
So it's not a great system that can be implemented for. Okay, so
it's not a real.
That's a real world solution to be able to check around there. Do you think that the quality of the ERUV here in Miami Beach and Bay Harbor and Surfside could have better materials, being that we're in a very wealthy neighborhood with a very high line. You think
imagine so.
Based on what you've been seeing, you think that it might?
I didn't see that much, but from what I can tell,
that it could use an upgrade to do it. Okay, so hopefully we're gonna get through to the Miami Beach ERUV Council to try to get them to push to look at this system, because they're the ones who have. Now, what's interesting
is
not
just putting Miami Beach. I'm trying to push.
For pushing,
this is like a countrywide thing that's going on, but that we're really, Baruch Hashem, forget about New York, New Jersey.
But they have different issues, because Brooklyn has a whole issue of some. She told the big gedulim.
Right. Stay away from all New York, New Jersey.
How, or I should say, what are the roadblocks, if you will, from different municipalities, generally, like in terms of setting up the infrastructure? Are they supportive? I mean, like what's?
So it depends on the city. It depends on the city. Most of the cities, you have to realize what I'm doing is that they got permission 30 years ago or whatever, and kind of just go with that. Whatever they got permission for, whatever they did, and we don't talk to them, and
we just do it.
We just do it, and
wow.
I've never had a problem. Believe it or not.
First, ask questions later.
100%. As someone says, as someone just told me that, you better say sorry than. For the most part, we just do it, and in a new era, sometimes then we'll talk to them. Sometimes it can be annoying, depending on the city. And then you end up with a lot of bureaucratic red tape.
But usually, for the most part, they've always been passed when they've gone to court, because there's.
Yeah. So from a legal perspective, once there's no if you do ask permission, they're not allowed to say no. It's just a matter of then they want it to look like this, look like that.
Go through the process, file all the paperwork.
Yeah, so then instead of costing X, now you're going to cost Y, just from a legal perspective, and the amount of time. Most of the time when people call me, it's like, okay, when do you want the ERUV? We wanted it last week. Okay.
Wow.
But some ERUV are, it's a months long process. It's just.
Do you carry in any ERUV anywhere in the country? Based on after your work?
I actually do not.
Wow. As someone who works on the ERUV system?
I do not. Not only that, but my wife and kids don't either. If you want to know.
Wow. Mordechai.
You could ask my 6-year-old daughter.
Wow. You know what? I always love that. I always love to hear from the people. It's like the guys who are the shochatim. You tell them, what do you eat? No, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat. What do you mean? You have access to all the meat? Yeah, I know how the system is. It's interesting. But you know what? It's nice to hear. You sound like a Talmid Chacham. Where did you learn Hilchot Eruvin?
In Eretz Yisrael.
In Eretz Yisrael? At Baltimore.
In Baltimore. A lot of shimush on the ground with Shlomi Francis.
Shlomi Francis.
We wrote the Sefer Laws and ERUV.
Laws and ERUV.
Very nice. So I spent many hours and checking.
Do you review your learning with updated new halachot or shoots that coming from Israel on discussing?
Yeah, so a lot of the Eretz Yisrael stuff is really.
It's not pertinent here.
It's Eretz Yisrael mahalchim, which don't really. And it's a different mahalach, and therefore it doesn't. Some of the things obviously apply, but it doesn't. A lot of it doesn't translate over. For the most part, it's just I spend more time on Google Maps and looking and trying to come up with ways to figure out, problem areas.
So really, based on all that you're saying, these ERUVim are really not intended for the men that are really learned people that are yeshiva.
I don't even, I don't need to tell you that. The Mishnah Berurah says that. The Mishnah Berurah says Baal Nefesh Yachmir, and you shouldn't carry an ERUV. So you don't have to quote me. The Mishnah Berurah says it before me. And obviously it's Chofetz Chaim. You don't even mean to tell you that. He's just talking about the Rosh Hashanah shilos. I'm just pointing out that there's myriads of other shilos, but beyond that is that one thing everyone agrees with is that you need kosher mechitzos, which is pretty much what I'm spending my day on, is trying to make have kosher mechitzos. You have to understand that a lot of times you're using the telephone wires, and we're putting something on the telephone poles to be under the wires to make it a kosher to the vesach, and multiple different telephone companies and contractors and subcontractors and subcontractor who are all working on the poles, and they can move the wire an inch and it'll pass the layer for everyone. And it's literally moved it a millimeter.
And it's not worth the avon of carrying on Shabbat. It's just not worth it.
It's a big. So
too many things can go wrong.
A lot of things can go wrong, and if without a non-checked thoroughly every few months is a puzzle here, guaranteed.
And by the way, and if you find that it's pasul, we have months before that seemingly. And you know what? Being what you're saying, we're already using a lot of leniencies. And the fact that it could be pasul within those leniencies in and of itself would be even another issue. Wow, I'm so glad you came tonight. I'm glad that you came out of your way. God willing, we'll put your phone number in the description if anyone wants to contact you for your services. You travel the country, you go all around.
Fly around, drive around.
And I'm going to keep you on my WhatsApp for any halacha questions on ERUV going forward. Rabbi Mordechai, thank you for coming. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.